I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel, and the time is 5:30. The board will now reconvene into open session. The time is 6:50. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the Matters from the Floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Item 5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, Garner Middle School. Mr. Bajeskel.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Gottardy, executive staff, and guests. My name is John Bajeskel, and I'm the principal of Garner Middle School. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce two outstanding student leaders and their families who are with us this evening. Leading us in the pledges is an outstanding young man, Benjamin Esquivel. Ben excels in many areas of school and community. He is in our gifted and talented program in both English and in math, and is in pre-advanced placement courses in all of his other core subjects. In addition to his academics, he excels in athletics and is a true competitor and leader. Ben also gives back to his school and community by being a mentor to other students as a pal in our Peer Assistance Leadership Program. His teachers consistently say that he is a dedicated, motivated student who gives 100% effort on everything he attempts. He has a positive attitude and shows true leadership qualities among his peers. Joining Ben this evening to help celebrate and support this young man's achievements are his parents, Samuel and Christy Esquivel, who is a program coordinator in our district, and both sets of grandparents, Manuel and Josie Esquivel, and Frank and Sherry Owen. Giving this evening's invocation is another outstanding student, Caden Schwartz. Academically, Caden is also in the top 5% of her class like Ben. She is in our gifted and talented program in English and is in pre-advanced placement classes in all her other core subjects. Caden is another example of the 360-degree student. She excels in our fine arts programs as an exceptional viola musician. Her teachers say that she is a delight to have in class and is a true leader in all that she does. She ranked among the best at the TMEA Region Orchestra auditions, and last year as a 7th grader and only one of 14 students chosen for this honor, Caden was selected for the Combrio Region Orchestra. Joining Caden this evening to celebrate and support this young lady's achievements is her mom, Lindsay Schwartz. Caden's dad, Corey, who is a teacher at MacArthur High School, was unable to be here with us tonight. At this time, Caden will lead us in the invocation, and following her will be Ben to lead us in the pledges.
Dear Lord, thank you for all of these wonderful board members that help with NEISD. I am so thankful for everyone who helps keep our schools in order and the teachers that teach and care about us. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to go to the school in this district. Thank you for the teachers that not only teach us, but care about us and how well we do in school. You have blessed us with so many things, so thank you for that. Amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Would you please come forward because we have certificates for you and we're going to take a picture with Mr. Wheat and Dr. Gottardy. Thank you so much for being here this evening and thank you for your words. I want to thank you all for being here, but you, I'm sure, are very busy and have a lot to study and do, so you may, you're welcome to stay, but I'm sure you would like to leave, so. Thank you again. Item 6, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Winkley, and Mr. Jaso is the second. There can be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 2, possible action regarding proposed recommendation for termination of Chapter 21 continuing contract employee. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. There could be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 3, possible action regarding proposed recommendation to notify the Texas Education Agency of contract employees' abandonment of contract without good cause. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. There can be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 4, possible action regarding termination of Chapter 21 probationary contract employee. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Jaso. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. There can be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 5, introductions. Dr. Gottardy.
Thank you, Madam President, board members, and guests. It's my privilege and honor this afternoon to introduce a brand-new assistant principal at Eisenhower Middle School, Miss Samantha Canales. There she is. Ms. Canales joined the Northeast family in 2007. Prior to being named an assistant principal at Eisenhower, she was the academic dean of instruction at Eisenhower Middle School. Ms. Canales received a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies in 1997 from Texas A&M University, Kingsville. She earned a master's degree in education curriculum and instruction in 2011 from the University of Texas at Arlington. She earned a second master's degree in education leadership in 2016 from Lamar University. Ms. Canales has 20 years in education. Congratulations, Samantha. We also have a new assistant principal at Wood Middle School, Miss Jessica Powers. Ms. Powers joined the Northeast family in 2014. Prior to being named as assistant principal at Wood, she was a teacher at Driscoll Middle School. Ms. Powers received a bachelor's degree in applied learning and development in early childhood in 2006 from the University of Texas at Austin. She earned a master's degree in educational leadership and policy studies in 2013 from the University of Texas at Arlington. Ms. Powers has 9 years in education. Congratulations, Jessica. We also have a new assistant principal of Tuscany Heights Elementary School, Miss Amber Leon. Miss Leon joined the Northeast family in 2013. Prior to being named the assistant principal at Tuscany, she was a teacher at Clear Spring Elementary School. Miss Leon received a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies in 2012 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. She earned a master's degree in educational leadership and policy studies in 2015 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Miss Leon has 5 years in education. Congratulations, Amber. We also have with us tonight, we have a Boy Scout. He's an 8th grader at Lopez Middle School, Nathan George. Nathan, will you stand up? There he is. Nathan is here to earn his communications badge, and with him is his dad, Lieutenant Colonel Ben George, and I want to thank you for your years of service, Lieutenant Colonel. Thank y'all for being here this evening. That concludes our introductions. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Item B, possible action on the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property pursuant to Government Code Section 551.072, no action. Item C, possible action regarding consultation with board's attorney pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071, 1, possible and pending litigation, no action. Item 7, recognitions. A, 2018 convocation performers, Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Gottardy, executive staff, and guests. Before Ms. Shore starts on this, I would like to thank her and Dr. Maika, and they're probably not here, but Jody Noblet and Cindy Gregory, who worked tirelessly to have an outstanding event. And a lot of work went into this. And with that, Ms. Shore.
Good evening. It is my honor and privilege tonight to introduce you to 12 very talented students and singers made up for our convocation. We have students from each of our high schools represented. These students invested numerous hours over their summer break to come in and work together on the musical pieces for this convocation. I don't know about you, but they blew me away. I was so proud of them. Their talent, commitment, and their professionalism was on top. These students are truly top-notch students, and we are fortunate that they call NEISD home. It was so nice to see these students working together from all of these different schools, becoming friends and becoming one ensemble. Even today, when I got here and we started gathering students, they were talking about birthday parties and who was going to be able to make it. And I just love that we have all 7 schools and they were all able to make that bond. It's really nice to see. I would like to take a moment to introduce all of these very talented students this evening. From Churchill High School, Caroline Kolvinsky. From Churchill High School, Bryn Owen. From Johnson High School, Nicholas Detmer. From Johnson High School, Abby Powers. From Lee High School, Sophia Perez. From MacArthur High School, Becky Dorsa. From MacArthur High School, Tremaine Perkin. From Madison High School, Caitlin Dutton. From Madison High School, Ethan Rodriguez. From Reagan High School, Nathan Napoli. I would like to say her name, even though she wasn't able to come. She's doing some SAT prep this evening. From Reagan, Miss Lauren Schoaf. And yes, clap for her. And from Roosevelt High School, Mr. Sam Vasquez. I would also like to introduce their very talented directors who help us make this possible. They weren't all able to make it tonight, but I definitely feel are very much so worth of their introductions this evening. So from Johnson High School, our choir director is Miss Christy Brown. From Madison High School, Miss Edie Cooksey and Mr. Peter Cunningham. And from Reagan High School, Miss Mary Cowart. I would like to thank Mr. Jody Noblet for his expert musical arrangement and his time and efforts working with these amazing students. And I would be remiss if I did not thank the parents for sharing your beautiful children with us, and their talents were unbelievable. So thank you to the parents very much. We would like you to get squishy together. We're going to take a picture. Directors, we'd like you to be in the picture also.
I don't think they're getting me.
Yeah, no, I think we're okay now.
Thank you guys so much.
They'll Photoshop us out.
You saw a little bit of my. Yeah. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Congratulations.
Yes, you all were fabulous. Thank you so much for all your time and work you put into perform at convocations for us.
I thought we might be able to get a quick song. No?
They could probably do it.
They could sing on their way out.
Right. Flash mob.
They're ignoring us. What I want to know is, can they do the floss? They probably can, right?
What?
Could they teach us how to do that? No. No. All right. Item 8, presentations. A, Transforming the Future Strategic Plan. Dr. Gottardy.
Thank you, Madam President, board members, and guests. It's really my honor this evening to bring a culmination of a strategic design plan that we started in 2013. It's incredibly surprising to me that 5 years have gone by so quickly. I want to turn the microphone over to our Director of Governmental Relations, Ms. Deb Caldwell, who's going to walk you through a presentation that illustrates the high points of 5 years of work, and then I'll have some concluding remarks at the end. Deb?
Thank you, Madam President, board members, Dr. Gottardy, executive staff, and guests. Tonight we're bringing you just a very quick overview of our Transforming the Future strategic plan, as Dr. Gottardy mentioned. For our new trustees, wanted to bring a recap of when it all began. As Dr. Gottardy mentioned, we started with community input in September of 2013. That community input involved education summits, surveys, which were done online, and focus group meetings. We asked our community, what is your greatest hopes for education? And we gathered all of that input and fed it to a strategic design team, which was also representative of stakeholders from Northeast ISD. It included board members, as well as parents, staff, and even our students. And that was about a 40-member committee. They reviewed the data. It was used to create goals, which I'll talk about in just a minute. It was then sent over to our action teams for more specific results of those goals, came back to the strategic design team, and finally the board approved it in February of 2014. We began our implementation in the 14-15 school year. So to review our process a little bit further, as I mentioned, the two main collaborative groups of the process was the strategic design team and the action teams. Parents and students and community members were involved all throughout the process. The strategic design team was asked to articulate our beliefs as a district, our call to action, the learner outcomes we want and what a learner profile is, and goals for a 5-year period. Those goals were then given to action teams, 8 action teams for 8 goals. And those action teams over a series of months met to define specific results on how we would measure progress toward those goals. Annually, the strategic design team met to review which specific results would be implemented in which year of the plan. So they would set those goals for each year and develop that timeline for staff. District leadership then formulated the action plans in order to achieve those specific results. So as a reminder, in April of 2017, you as a board recognized the strategic design team. Dr. Gottardy provided them with a superintendent's coin for their service. So the Transforming the Future strategic design plan included 8 goals and 39 specific results. Over a 4-year period, we've implemented all 39 specific results. We started with 12 in the 14-15 school year, followed by 11, 8, and 8. And because we are aggressive as a district with meeting our goals, we took a 5-year plan and was able to complete it in 4 years. So tonight, I'm just going to share with you 2 examples from each of those implementation years, just to give you a flavor of the plan. So in year 1, we implemented item 2B, which was to integrate authentic technology training in a variety of ways at trainings, meetings, and functions, including content-specific professional development within the course of the workday. Well, what does that mean? That means that we should be providing professional development, not just in a content area, a subject area, but also with technology embedded. Rather than a teacher going and having iPad training or a technology-specific training in isolation of content, we merge the two. So you would go to a social studies training and you would have the technology embedded in it. So the teachers in the professional development at the same time would have an option to not only get deeper into the content, but learn some of the tools that they could use in their classroom with the students. It was definitely a collaboration between our curriculum and instruction department and our technology specialists to develop and deliver that seamless professional development. In year 1, we also implemented an item to increase awareness and support for the Northeast Educational Foundation. We have increased attendance at our gala, we've added an employee giving campaign, and we've engaged our supporters in deeper ways. Moving on to year 2, we had an item related to implementing a tangible resource plan district-wide to assist campuses that do not meet current district minimum standards for facilities, technology, equipment, library collections, and other resource program areas. We started off with a comprehensive needs assessment that we gave to our principals and to our community to identify where standards were not being met across the district. That ultimately was shared with the facilities planning committee that was able to then develop a list of items that would be part of the Northeast Bond package that went to the voters in November 2015, and it was approved. And that was a direct result of our strategic planning process. Also in year 2, we created a system that includes a website and related app for students and adults to track their volunteer hours. Students can now track their hours through a page to the district website. It's done through the student portal, and parents can also access it through the parent portal if needed. Under this goal, we also had an item to establish a protocol for recognizing student service. We have successfully implemented a bronze, silver, and gold level recognition for student volunteerism. In year 3, we implemented distance learning experiences intended to bring the real world into the classroom. Our campuses have had the opportunity to do video conferences with experts and other classrooms. Also in year 3, we utilized project-based learning to integrate real-world experiences in grades K-12 classrooms. An example of this would be the maker spaces that are in our libraries, which engage students in hands-on activities and problem solving. These exploratory spaces were part of Bond 2015, and it provides lots of different resources and materials for students to get their hands into. They also participate in Lego League Robotics. It's another example of project-based learning. In year 4, we implemented supportive programs specific to campus needs to address the emotional and physical well-being of students and staff. We created a social emotional learning framework, which is here on the screen, through a feedback process that involved more than 550 stakeholders. Also in year 4, we implemented the creation of and support of interwoven implementation of meaningful assessment options that are linked to scope and sequence. We purchased an item bank called Star Test Maker to help our teachers pull items to use in their classroom for their own assessments. It includes more than 65,000 rigorous test items that are aligned with the latest TEKS. and it also includes items adapted for Spanish in grades 1 through 5. Dr. Gottardy, that concludes my overview. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Deb. You know, to undertake a strategic design effort for a school district this size, for a fairly new superintendent back in 2012-13 was very nerve-wracking. And I can tell you that I am so proud of this entire process. The idea that we went to 7 different high schools, collected data throughout the community. I'll never forget when we rolled the amount of data back to our strategic design committee. We had 220 pages, single-spaced, of comments from our community and from our stakeholders in the school district. So just the idea of a huge undertaking of going out to our community and gathering information about what do they want to see for the future of their children, future of their grandchildren, future of the schools that make up Northeast Independent School District, I think was a huge success. I will tell you that many of the specific results, I'm very glad that Deb highlighted many of them tonight. Mrs. Hughey was on the Strategic Design Committee. We heard a lot from our parents and from our community members about compassionate learners. Well, guess what? The state of Texas doesn't evaluate us on whether or not we have compassionate students or not. So as the superintendent, knowing that we have a very complex accountability system at our hands, made me a little nervous. But everywhere I go, people will tell us all the great things that we're doing for kids in this school district outside of math, science, English, history. It's that idea of raising future citizens in this state and in this country. So huge success, 36 specific results.
It ended up being 39 because some
We
toward
actually
the
added
end got
some.
edited, and yes, sir.
So 39 actual goals came out of months of going out to our community, having our website available for people to send in messages. I think the interaction with our community was superb. I think the 39 results that came out of it obviously were implemented in 4 years and not 5 years. The idea that we're doing so much academically, but then at the same token, we're also doing things that help round out. It's that 360 experience that we talk about so much in this school district, that we want kids, when they graduate from Northeast high schools, they go out and do great things. So board members, thank you so much for 5 years ago giving us approval to move out and do a strategic design plan. Feel that it was incredibly helpful for the future of Northeast School District. It had been somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 years before that we had embarked on any kind of that kind of process. Staff is now discussing steps for the next strategic design plan. So Deb and I are here, and other staff members are here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions for Deb or Dr.? I would just like to say thanks for being overachievers. And if you are a member of Strategic Design, would you stand up, please, if you're here? And thank you all for all your hard work. We really appreciate it.
You know, if I may I add one more thing, please? One thing that I thought was very important is that our schools have so much on their plates. And the idea that we were going to add 36 at the time, in fact, it ended up being 39 additional things that they needed to do. I was also very proud that one of those 39 was to go back and take things off their plate. Things that were fantastic in 1985 or maybe 1995, but are not necessarily important for 2015. We actually removed some requirements and removed some tasks for campuses to have to do, and I felt very good about that one specific result as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Deb. Item 9, new business for possible board action. A, board policy. 1, possible action regarding board policy update 111, second and final reading. Ms. King?
Madam President, Board Member, Dr. Gottardy, Executive Staff, and guests, we bring to you the second and final reading of Update 111 for your approval. As mentioned at the last regular board meeting, Update 111 focuses on updating legal policies that were affected by changes in the law from the 85th legislative session and recent administrative rule changes. Several local policies have been updated to better align the changes in law or administrative rules or for organizational and restructuring purposes. We'll be glad to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions regarding this? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the,
I move for approval.
thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Sorry, I got distracted reading something. Item B, instruction and campus administration. 1, possible action regarding accountability overview, challenges, projections, and targeted improvement plans. Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Gottardy, executive staff, and guests. Several months ago, we had a couple of representatives from Region 20 give the board a presentation in an attempt to explain the new accountability system. In this presentation, we will be following up with the plans that were ultimately decided upon. We will also include the overall district results and conclude with the plans for our 2 improvement required campuses. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Maika at this time to introduce the first part of the presentation.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Gottardy, executive staff, and guests. So before Ms. Chidgey addresses this item, I would like to remind you of a special board meeting that we all attended in the spring on Senate Bill 1566 that in part focused on the new state accountability system. If you recall, the presenters from Region 20 attempted to explain the new accountability system at that time. After they completed what they knew about Domain 1, some of you were asking questions about the new accountability, how the new accountability system operated in that domain. And that was just one of the 3 domains. I made the comment that this was the one domain that we actually understood at that time, and that the other 2 we were still confused. And I can see, Ms. Winkley, you're recalling that time.
I remember that, yes.
At August Leadership and on Convocation, Dr. Gottardy explained to personnel that the new STAR was a disruption. The new accountability system, for the first time ever, focuses truly on student growth and simply not proficiency. The first part of Mrs. Chidgey's presentation this evening will highlight some of the issues we and the state encountered as the new rules for STAR were being formulated and aligned to the ESSA plan from the federal government. Now that we have the rules from TEA, Dr. Newman and I felt it was important to come back to the board with a follow-up from that spring presentation. So at this time, Mrs. Chidgey, if you would go ahead and address this.
Thank you, Dr. Maika. So, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gottardy, is it not on? Is it on? Madam President, is it on? You want me to go to the mic instead?
Okay, till it gets turned on.
I'll come back, that's okay.
You're multitasking.
Okay, so Madam, this is not on.
It's not on either.
Yeah.
So I need to be over here.
Let's see if this is on. If not, I'll wing it from there.
It may be on by now.
Yeah, it's on.
It's on.
Here it goes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gottardy, executive staff, and guests. There's actually 3 portions of this presentation. The first one is the accountability overview and the challenges that were posed by this A through F system. The second part will go through I say briefly, but it is a brief presentation of how Northeast ISD did. It won't seem brief, I don't think. And then the last part is we come to you tonight with action asking for approval for our targeted improvement plan for 2 IR schools. So the challenges could go on and on. We have listed 5 here that we're going to, following this slide, give you a little bit more detail on. The first one is TEA released guidelines and decisions late, after we had already taken the test. So the guidelines and decisions are the rules by which we will be held accountable. We got the finals after we tested. And often when they came out with final decisions, they came back afterwards and changed the decisions that they had made. So we'll talk about that. State and federal accountability have been out of sync all year, which led to changes a week before district received results. Online testing issues affected thousands of our most at-risk students across the state in both April and May. And there was inconsistency and confusion about how that was going to be handled and how our students were going to count towards accountability after the fact. And I'll talk about that. And then a challenge for us has been that it was continuously touted as a simple, easy to understand system. A through F, everybody understands A through F, when indeed it is a very complex system. And at the very last hour, approximately 20% of campuses throughout the state that were rated improvement required were forced failures. They actually scored high enough to meet standard, but because of a new regulation, if you will, they were forced failures. So here's the timeline, and what I'd like you to notice is the top line. It is actually when our students took the test. So April 2nd through 17th was the first round of STAR and EOC exams. And then the next round of exams was May 7th through 18th. And then we got our first glimpse at our preliminary results August 7th. So then let's talk about when we received information on how, if you will, the rules would be, how we would be held to accountability. And you know, I want to go back and just say, we want to be held accountable. We do. And we want success for our children. So it's not that we don't want that and that we don't care and want to meet every child's needs every day. But I think you're going to continue to see that looking at this bottom line, we had to overcome many challenges to understand and to know how to present this information to our principals, to our teachers, and that goes down to our students and what is going to be, what they are going to be measured by. So on April 12th, now I want you to look back up top, the test was April 2nd through 17th. So in the midst of testing, they released the final decisions for accountability. Now those decisions were just brief excerpts of some of the decision points that were being discussed throughout the state. For instance, how much does approaches counts, how much does meets counts, many, many details. It was just very brief, brief rulings on those things. May 18th, we got the first draft of the accountability manual. May 18th, we're done testing. But we got the draft of the accountability manual. This is very different than usual. We usually get the manual sometime in January. It was incomplete. May 24th was when we got our first notification on how TEA was going to handle our online testing glitches, and that was only the first communication we had. We got one later, which I'll show you, which counteracted what they said on May 24th. On May 7th was the first time we had seen what TEA posted as the final graduation and dropout information for the students from the year before, because graduation, it was not our 2018 graduates, it was our 2017 graduates. So we had not seen the final graduation and dropout information until June 7th, which you need to calculate how you did on your accountability. July 20th, TEA released the draft of accountability manual with the new forced failure rules. So we had had an opportunity to have public comments about decision points that were being discussed. The forced failure, and they don't call it forced failure, by the way, it's 3 out of 4 Fs, you are automatically a 59. That did not come out until July 20th. Never had we had an opportunity to have discussion about that. August 7th, now go up above, and that was the first time we got our preliminary results. That's when we got our accountability manual. And then on August 15th, TEA released the accountability to the public. So now this timeline talks about the federal accountability timeline. And one thing I think that they did very well this year, or this accountability system, is they have embedded the federal accountability into Domain 3. So, because in the past we've had a state accountability system and a federal accountability system. So they placed the federal accountability system in Domain 3. So September, about a year ago, TEA submitted their ESA plan to the U.S. Department of Education. And so our department very busily began taking what we thought to be the accountability system and training our principals, going to principals meetings, having discussion with principals so they could go back and discuss it with their teachers and train their teachers. On December 21st, the USDE provided feedback to TEA that requested clarifications and revisions. So what we thought to be the rules were no longer the rules they were going to change. So on January 8th, TEA submitted a rough plan followed by their final ESA plan on March 6th.
I don't mean to interrupt, but what's ESA?
ESA is Every Student Succeeds Act.
Thank you.
So we used to have Nickelby, and this has been replaced by Every Student Succeeds Act. And it is our federal plan.
And Miss Williams, Nickelby is No Child Left Behind Act.
Thank you.
That's okay.
I'm so
We're going to
sorry.
throw out all these acronyms, and that's okay. You need to ask just as you're doing. Thank you.
So on March 6th, TEA submitted the final ESA plan, but it's not really, they submitted it, right? But they've already submitted one, so it could be rejected, so we couldn't really plan on that being the right plan. So then on April 12th, TEA said, well, you didn't accept what we put in September 25th about our TELPAS scores. Our TELPAS test this year was the first year that students, there's 4 parts of the TELPAS test, and 2 of the parts, listening, speaking, for the first time were given online, and the students had microphones like this that they spoke into. Now you can imagine small children with microphones. I'm having some problems with it myself. So there were a lot of connectivity issues. There were students that couldn't hear, students that didn't speak loud enough into it. So with TELPAS, you compare yourselves to the year before. So because this was the first time, TELPAS is given to our English language learners. And so we asked for a waiver that it not count this year. So when we did our projections without TELPAS because everybody felt like it was going to be granted.
And Ms. Chigi, that was the state asking for that waiver.
Yes, I'm sorry. And we thought we were going to be granted that, but on August 2nd, it was denied. And so the accountability manual was amended slightly to state that the 2017 TELPAS data would be used because it was different. We didn't really have a baseline to compare 2017 to 2018 because 2018 was different. And please stop me if you have questions. So this is the online testing issue. The students that take it online are our most at-risk students. These are students who require online embedded supports for STAR. They have accommodations. It is developed by TEA to ensure that the state and federally required assessments are accessible to every student, including ELL learners and students with disabilities. So both in April and in May. Now, 2 years ago, we had huge issues, and they rallied and did a good job fixing it for last year before last. So this year, 2018, both in April and in May, we had times when the entire system shut down while the students were taking the test. That did not affect us as much in April, but in May, it did. And so we busied ourselves calling TEA, what do we do? Our online system is down. With as many people who called, those were the number of answers you got, different. Everybody was giving us something to just shut them down, try them again, shut it down for 30 minutes, go to lunch, come back. Everybody gave us a different answer. There were people answering the phone, there were people that called and didn't get answers. But so on May 24th, we got our first response from our commissioner that said there were 26,000 students that were impacted. We found it to be 400 in Northeast. He said that if they were logged off for more than 30 minutes and or made an attempt to log back in more than 5 times, their scores would not count towards our accountability. Well, there was a lot of complaining about that because that did not follow the directions many people at TEA gave during that time. So you see that letter came on May 24th. On June 1st, another letter came. And now it said if they were logged off longer than 15 minutes or they tried to log back on for 3 times. So our numbers then increased to 850 students that were impacted. We never heard from the state how many were impacted. They stayed with their 26,000. But what we do know is that our most at-risk students were very much impacted by that experience. These are kids that already had anxiety with tests, and when it just completely crashed, it definitely caused an issue at campuses. So then this is the oversimplification of the complex system. TEA asserts that the A through F system is easy to understand, but the methodology of 3 domains is extremely complex. Even reporting excerpts, we rely on 2 different companies, OnPoint and Leap Forward, and they typically do projections for us. They had great difficulty in doing projections for us. In fact, 2 of the analysts at OnPoint quit in the middle of it because they just could not find success. This quote, I always am reticent to read to you, but I am going to read this, from Commissioner Morath. He says that the idea that you can go and find very clear and easy to understand performance information on campuses would greatly help parents finding a best fit school for their kids. Because you might not know what precisely goes into the definition of an A, but you do know that an A is better than a B. And that kind of simplicity in the terms of communication should help parents dramatically. So definitely parents know what an A through an F stands for, but this system is, in all of my years in education, it is the most complex system we have ever experienced.
And if I can just interject, something that Dr. Gottardy shared at convocation in August leadership to exemplify this is, to go into our accountability rating, there were over 2,600 data points in order to calculate it.
So I've been talking about the forced failure issue. So sometime in July, somebody at the Austin Chamber of Commerce at a meeting there made a question, gave a question, asked a question. Do you mean that a school or a district, there's 4 parts, 3 domains, but one of them has 2 parts, can score 3 of the 4 Fs and receive a passing grade? Well, mathematically, yes. A school can score 3 because there are best ofs. He said that didn't seem right. So without public comment, without discussion throughout the state, the commissioner changed that policy or didn't change it, he added it to the accountability manual so that if you have an F in 3 of the 4 areas, even if your overall average is a 60 or higher, the highest you can receive is a 59. So that did impact many schools. So I have other issues here. I'm just going to say a few of them. I will not go into the depth that I just did. One of them is the graduation and the college and career military readiness calculations are different on Domain 1 than they are in Domain 3. So on August 8th, TEA notified superintendents. So the results came out on the 7th, but on the 8th they came out and said, "Oh, we made a mistake. They're incorrect. We got updates." The data delivered on August 7th was in raw form. We have always gotten it by scale. That we've always gotten the scale form, the scale format. We had to calculate the raw format to the scale format. So what we got was not the final score for each student. We had to calculate it. ETS sent the growth measure. So this year, you'll see in a minute, and you all learned from Region 20, for growth, a student can get 0, 0.5, or 1 point. Over the past years, they've been able to get 0, 1, or 2 points. ETS made an error when they sent out our results, and they used the old calculations of 1 and 2 points. So principals got that and were highly confused by their results. And then to top it off, the people that we thought we could call and get good answers from have been either they're gone or they've been moved or reassigned. I called this summer with a question before I was presenting at August Leadership. I really wanted an answer. I spoke to 8 people. Each person kept sending me on to another person, and the 8th person said, "I'm going to help you with this. We're going to get to the bottom of this." So she and I read the manual together and tried to figure out what it meant, and even she struggled with it, but we think we had it close enough. But that is the kind of help we're getting from TEA right now. So with that said, I'd like to share with you how did Northeast do on the A through F accountability. There are 3 domains. It is the best of Domain 1. There's 2 parts of Domain 2, 2A and 2B, and that part counts 70%. Domain 3 has 4 parts, and that counts 30%. This year, our state is going to get an A through F rating, and campuses are going to get met standard or improvement required. However, at the end of this, I am going to show you the A through F for campuses, even though it says they'll only receive improvement required or met standard, because the state has come out and listed how many campuses were A's and B's and C's. So we know as a board you want to be informed, so we are going to share our school ratings. Next year, all schools will get an A through F rating, officially. So let's begin with the end of them in mind. I'm going to go through each of these and explain them. But the good news is we have an 85, which is a B. We always want to be an A, of course, but when you look at us in comparison, we feel very good about this. And I'll go through each domain and tell you how we got there. So Domain 1. So for elementary and middle schools, Domain 1 is just STAR. But for district, and that's what I'm going to focus on tonight, and high school, there are 3 parts to STAR. So, to Domain 1. STAR, college, career, military readiness. And I do want to make a note tonight that military readiness has been added. It has been college and career readiness in the past, and military has been added to this. And then graduation rate is 20%. So one of the things that was a huge discussion point and was very much requested by different TASA, MOCASE, TSA, superintendents, was that each of these count 30%. We believe that graduation is more important than 20%. It might be the most important thing we do, and it counts the least in Domain 1, and it's taken out of Domain 2, and it counts the least in Domain 3. So for the first part of Domain 1, which is STAR, we in Northeast had an 81% approaches grade level, 56% meets grade level, and 27% master's grade level. You add those 3 together, divide by 3, and get a 55. That 55 is the raw score. There is a conversion table that TEA has that converts it to the scale score. So you put the 55 in, out pops an 86. 86 is our star portion for our district for Domain 1, and it counts 40% of Domain 1. The second part of Domain 1 is college and career military readiness. And this is always a year, so these are not our 2018 graduates, they're our 2017 graduates. If they earned all of these, the most that points they can get is 1. So each graduate can only earn 1 point, even though they might have scored a 3 or high, 3, 4, or 5 on an AP exam, and they scored the required SAT score, and they took dual credit. They can only get 1 point. So you want your every student to gain 1 point. The only place that there's a half point is the CTE coherent sequence, and that is a change, and that is something we did not find out until the manual came out on April 12th. And the and is a place we did not learn about until April 12th, and the or on dual credit. So 55% of our students got, well, they either got it came to a 55 with the half points added with the full points. That's the raw score. With the calculation with the TEA conversion chart, it's an 83. That's the second part, which counts 40% of Domain 1. And then the last part of Domain 1 is the graduation, which counts 20%. And this is different than Domain 3 in that it's the best of a 4-year graduation rate, 5-year graduation rate, or 6-year graduation rate. And of course, the 6-year graduation rate there, 94.1, is our best. And these, so you would think we would figure that as a 94, but you put it in the conversion table that converts the raw score of a 94 to an 80. So 80 is our scale score. I know there was some question about that. Does that explain your question? Okay. So here's our domain score. We had an 86 on the star portion times 40% gives you 34.4 points. 83 on the college career military readiness times 40%, 33.2 points. 80% from our 94% graduation rate times 20, 16. You add those together. Our score for Domain 1 is an 84. So let's go to Domain 2. Domain 2 has 2 parts. Student growth is the first part, showing how students compare with how they did last year. And then relative performance, comparing our schools and our districts to all of the schools and districts in the state with the same economically disadvantaged percentage. So here is school progress. These are tests, not students. You have to have a comparable test. So a 3rd grader taking math, the following year taking math again, if they're still there, and they take it in the same language, it's English to English or Spanish to Spanish, they would be counted in this. Only reading and math tests are counted here, and only tests where there are 2 consecutive years of the same test. So of the 51,004 tests, 11,515 tests received a 0 because they did not make the required growth. 5,692 received a 0.5 because they maintained. They stayed where they grew a year, and so but they didn't exceed, they didn't make more growth than was expected. And then if they met or exceeded progress, they got 1 point. So 33,797 tests, plus half of this, because these count half. That's your numerator. Your denominator is 51,004. And that comes out to a raw score of 72. You put it in the conversion table, and the scale score is an 84. That's our Domain 2A score. Domain 2B is relative performance. Our economically disadvantaged number is 46.6. So we are compared with all of the districts in the state with a 46.6. And then they take Domain 1 score. Now, in elementary and middle school, they take the entire Domain 1 score because it's just STAR. But for high school and district, they take the STAR part of it and the college and career and military part of it. They exclude graduation on this. So each of these, the STAR part counts 50% and the college and career military readiness counts 50%. That's a 55. They put it into a conversion table that takes both of these numbers, 46.6 and 55, and the scale score becomes an 83. So how did we do on domain? Oh, I don't have a final there, but let me just go back and tell you that at the end I will show you we'll take the best of those scores, the best of the 83, the 84, and the 84. So it would be an 84, and that will count 70%, and I'll show you that at the end. So domain 3 has 4 parts, and domain 3 is closing the gaps. Up until now, everything I've talked about has been all students. We have not talked about student groups. The ESA plan has student groups, and everything about this, for the most part, is student groups. And this is the part that we sent off to the USDD, and they sent it back and said, no, make changes, and we went back and forth on that. So it has 4 parts. The 4 parts are different in elementary and middle school than they are in high school and districts, and they count differently. So even though I'm not going through elementary and middle school tonight, I do want you to see that those we are measured on a few different things than we are in high school and districts, and they count differently. So the first part of domain 3 is academic achievement, and it counts 50%. The graduation rate, you can see, counts 10%. The English language proficiency, which is what we asked for a waiver on, counts 10%. And then college, career, and military readiness counts 30%. All of that summed up counts 30% of the overall. So I think you're getting a glimpse of how simplistic this is not. So for domain 3, part 1, it is the percentage of students that meet grade level in math, and then the next slide will be meets grade level in reading. We were given targets that we have to meet by student groups. Each student group is a little bit different based on the 2017 data. And you have to have 25 students in each group to qualify for a group. So some of the campuses don't have all 14 of these groups. Most of them do not have all 14. The other thing I want to say is they have added continuously enrolled, non-continuously enrolled, and former SPED. The first time we saw which students were going to go in those student groups, officially, I mean, we could calculate, but to really be accurate with the student subset, the testing subset, we did not know that until August 7th. So our projections were very close. I'm very proud of my department, but they were off a little bit because we didn't have those three.
And Mrs. Chidgey, I think it's important to note that the scores here, it was our student who went to meets rather than approaches.
Right. So when we put it in September 25th, we said we wanted it to be approaches grade level. That is one of the changes that came out throughout the year, that it would be not approaches, it would be meets grade level. So I'll just go through a couple of these. For overall, that's all students. The target was a 46. Northeast had a 53. We get a Y. Yes or no. For African American, the target was 31. We had a 35. We got a yes. So you go across, there are 14 cells. We did not get a yes in Asian. The student group, the target is certainly much higher. We went back and looked, and every place that we see a concern, please don't think you're just seeing it. We too see it, and we are going to really drill down and do everything in our power to make sure we get Ys all the way across. We do know that we had 1,443 Asian testers in reading and 1,060 Asian testers in math. So that's where that came from. We had 14 cells there. We had 13 of 14. And this is reading. Again, same thing. The target was a 44. We had a 55. We got a Y. The target was a 32. We had a 36. We get a Y. So that's how that goes across. So we had 26 out of 28 of the student groups that received a yes. That's a 93%. And that will count 50% of domain 3.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Who determines the targets?
TEA determined the targets, and they based them on 2017 data. And it's a very complex formula, but it starts with what they had last year, subtracted it from 100, and they wanted to close the gap by 50%. So they said, how can we get you to 50%? In 15 years, there's supposed to be a 15-year plan broken up into 5 years. So something I should have said is these targets stay good for 5 years. And then in 5 years, new targets. And then in 5 years, a new target. 3 different 5-year targets. But they were based on last year's scores, and TEA did set them.
I won't try to do the math.
Well, I only gave you the first part of that calculation. So I'm going to go to the graduation. The federal graduation is different than you saw in Domain 1. It was the best of 4, 5, or 6-year graduates. This is 4-year graduates. This is our seniors for that year. This year, all of the targets are a 90 for all students. Well, and let me just say that special ed, continuously enrolled, and non-continuously enrolled is there. We have only 9 groups instead of the extra groups, because we did not have those new groups in PEAMS last year, and these are our 2017 graduates. So you can see across, we had 4 out of the 9 student groups that received a Y, and that is 44%, and that counts 10% of Domain 3, which is 30%. So TELPAS is the test that is given to English language learners. There are 4 levels: beginning, intermediate, advanced, and advanced high. We had 7,537 students who took the TELPAS test this year. But as I stated earlier, you have to take it 2 years in a row so that we can see, you have to grow 1 proficiency level. So you have to go from beginner to intermediate, or intermediate to advanced, or from advanced to advanced high, or stay at advanced high. We had 5,813 students who had a baseline from the year before. They took it 2 years in a row, so we could say, where were you last year and where are you now? 56% of those students made 1 proficiency level, at least 1. Some made more than 1. So the target for the next 5 years is a 42%, and we made the target. You either get a 0 on this part, or if you got an N there, you get a 0. If you get a Y there, you get 100%, and it counts 10%. So I'm nearing the end. The college and career military readiness, you saw it in Domain 1. Here it is broken out by student groups. So for overall college and career, and it's still based on those items that were listed on the page, like receiving a 3, 4, and 5 on an AP test, enlisting in the military, those kinds of things. So again, the score was a 47. We had a 53. The score for African American, the target was a 31. We had a 34. So we had 7 of the 12 possible areas, which was a 58%, and that counts 30%. So let's go to our Domain 3 report card. We had a 93 on the first part, which was the reading, meets, and masters. That's weighted 50%, 46.5. The graduation rate, which our score was at 44, times 10% is a 4.4. We received 100% on the English learner language proficiency portion, times 10%, that's 10. And then we received a 58 on college, career, military readiness, times 30%, 17.4. You add those up, you get a raw score of a 78. You put that in the conversion chart and come out with a scale score of an 86. So here is our report card. On domain 1, we had an 84. Domain 2A, an 84. Domain 2B, an 83. You take the best of. The best of that was an 84. That counts 70%. It comes out to 58.8. Our closing the gaps you just saw was 86. That counts 30%. That's a 25.8 or an 85. Our overall score is a B. So how did our campuses do? We had 66 campuses earn a rating of Met Standard, and we had 2 campuses that were rated IR. One of them was as a result of a forced failure. They would have, it was West Avenue, and they would have had a 63 if we had just done the best of and 70% and the 30%. So really, we should stick with that. But because the state has come out and said how many A's and B's they've had, and they are going to do a what if coming out this fall, we wanted you to be apprised. So we had in Northeast 20 A's, which was 29% of our campuses, as opposed to the state that had 19%. We had 22 B's, and 10 of those were Title I schools. And that's 32%. We had 18 C's, 10 of which were Title I schools, which was 26%. And here it's listed by how many, let me go back. 13 elementaries were A's, 4 were middle schools, and 3 were high schools that received A's. So it's broken down by level as well. 15 elementaries received a B, 6 middle schools, and 1 high school, and so on. And so we did have 6 D's, and we do have 2 F's, and those are IR schools. So part of the presentation tonight is coming to you to seek board approval for our targeted improvement plan for those 2 schools. There are things that we are required to do, and that we will, and certainly we will continue all year to work with our IR schools and to increase these scores. The first thing we had to do was to identify a district coordinator for school improvement. Eric Wicker is here tonight. He is the director of federal programs, and he will be the district coordinator for school improvement. We are required to identify a professional service provider. Our team has interviewed and selected somebody, and they were working on their contract as we speak. We're required to establish a campus leadership team. That leadership team will be led by the principals. We have both principals here tonight. Victor Saldana is here from West Avenue, and Randy Barr is here from Northern Hills. And Mr. Wicker and myself and Ms. Gutierrez and staff from both schools worked on their targeted improvement plans. That has already been done. We are required to give 15 days notice and hold public meetings at both of the at NEIR school. Northern Hills meeting is scheduled for next week on September 19th, and West Avenue's is scheduled for September 20th. So we do seek board approval. I assume there are questions before doing that. Yeah. If I hear none, we'll just...
So I have a question. So your professional service provider will do what?
Do you want to talk about that?
I'm Eric Wicker. I serve as the DCSI. I'm the Director of Federal Programs for the district. This professional service provider is contracted through a region out of Austin. They're the TEA liaison. So their role is to support the campuses in ensuring that the fidelity of the target improvement plan is followed through. They're required to submit progress reports to the state, ensuring that the work we're doing on the campuses is showing improvement for them.
So this is someone that excuse me, that TEA will provide, or?
So TEA, they go through a hiring process through TEA, and the regions are each provided a list of candidates that we can choose from. And so we selected a candidate from the Region 20 area. We pay them, the district does, for their services, but we're required to have them. And they provide feedback to the state on our progress with our targeted improvement plans that were submitted to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions? Are we going to go through those targeted plans, or is now the question that I had about the targeted plan?
We are not. This
Okay.
concludes the presentations.
Okay. I did have a question, and I don't know if I can read this off of here. So the Kelly Harmon consultant that was listed for, I think it was under reading, is that our professional service provider? No.
It's-
Okay.
Good evening. Kelly Harmon is a national.
Come to the mic.
Good evening. Kelly Harmon is a national reading consultant, and she has been working with our instructional specialists and our team in curriculum and instruction on the instructional model, and we have contracted her to do reading training for our campuses. She is a true expert in balanced literacy, and she will be working to ensure that our teachers have the professional development that they need to differentiate instruction within their reading instruction in the classrooms.
So is she only helping these two campuses, or do we use her for other campuses?
So she will be working with our 2 IR campuses, but we will be providing training district-wide for kinder through 5th grade teachers during the months of September and October.
Okay, because I was curious why we had a consultant for reading but not for math.
Our specialists, our district instructional specialists are working with math, guided math, small group instruction. But our focus specifically for our campuses, our IR campuses, is reading. That's one of our biggest focuses based on the data.
Okay. And that is not the professional service provider? That's somebody
No,
totally
that's
different?
somebody completely different.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you have a question, Ms. Hughey? Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? Thank you for that. I'm a math person and my head is spinning. So I just have a headache now.
Crazy math.
But this, you did a fantastic job. Really appreciate all the time and effort that everyone has put into this. I mean, the teams that have had to decipher all of this information that makes zero sense to me right now is just, we greatly appreciate everything that you've done.
I would like to introduce, if I might, Ms. Doreen Galindo and Alex Bardell, who worked tirelessly with this very complicated data.
So yes, thank you very much.
And President Grona, if I could just add, it was just amazing to watch these folks in action as the raw scores came in, and they were converting these scores and had it for us as quickly as they could, only to find that some things had changed. There were a couple errors that had been made, not on our part, but these folks were incredible. So thank you.
I mean, if I recall, I think we were at August Leadership on Tuesday afternoon. We thought we had it all figured out, and later that night, early the next morning, we find out from TEA that the scores that they sent us were wrong. So we had to wait, recalculate all over again. I mean, the idea that the state of Texas has been waiting on this A through F accountability system, even though none of us like it, we've been waiting on this for years. And the first time that the agency submits data to the school districts, it's wrong. I'll get off my soapbox, or I'll get off before I get on. It's been very frustrating. And the idea that the commissioner and our governor and our lieutenant governor has said that it's a simple and very transparent process is not the one that's actually having to answer these questions to our community and to our parents. It is simply not simple process to try and decipher what the score is when you have 2,600 data points that turns out to give us our 85 and to our B. But yes, our staff, we need to commend our staff for the work that they do. We'll continue to do great work at all of our schools. We'll continue to do great work at these 2 IR schools, and hopefully a year from now we'll be back here giving you a little bit different result.
Dr. Gottardy, I have a question, and I thought it was probably for the principals of it, but it may be for you. And just in how are those communities? I mean, I know I could imagine it was a shock. I'm shocked and I know that it has to do with the changing of their guidelines, that one day you're great and the next you're not so great. How are your communities? Have you had any parents,
I will ask Victor and Randy to come to the microphone,
Okay.
but before they do, let me take a stab at it, and then you please feel free to share with the board what your community has shared with you. It has been my reaction, it's been my, people come up to me all the time wanting to know how I feel about the A through F accountability system and how do I feel about these schools getting this grade. Most parents, they think that their schools in this district are doing a great job. And they do not rely. In fact, I will tell you, I've gotten zero feedback, zero emails about the A through F that was assigned to this school district or to the campuses. So I think in summary, I'm going to tell you that there's an article in the newspaper that talks about the test results. But overall, the feedback is not, it just doesn't register with our parents because they know, they feel good about what we're doing for their schools, what we're doing for their kids, the 360 piece. This is one measurement. This is one measurement of what our teachers and what our students are doing every year. And I think for the most part, parents understand that. Now, Victor, Randy, if you'd like to add anything from your specific community, feel free.
Sure. Again, I'm Victor Saldai. I'm the principal of West Avenue. We are going to hold the meeting on the 20th, but the feedback that we have gotten is that parents understand that we're there to educate their 360-degree child. We're taking care of their needs. This is based on a couple of days of testing. It's definitely a tool that has made us be more critical about what we're doing for children each and every day. And we're welcoming the challenge. We are confident that we're going to do that much better next year. But they've been very understanding about this whole complex yet simple system.
Complex. Yeah, I'd love to get a 55 and turn up with an 85 if I were taking a test.
That's that bell curve.
Well,
That
we
the
don't want
bell.
to get a 90 and then get an 80.
No, well, Shannon and I went, when we were at TASB, we went to a breakout session on the A through F accountability, and we walked out of there. Basically, they said, hey, a B is great. A B is fantastic. You don't want to shoot for anything higher because we don't know what's going to happen next. And sure enough, before we, turn the corner, it changed. It always changes. So I commend both of you. I know you're doing a great job. You wouldn't be where you were if you weren't. So we're behind you 100%.
I'm debating whether I want to add it.
Okay, seeing none. No, do you want that? Okay, all right. Anybody else have any other questions, comments? Ms. Hughey?
I really, really, really appreciate this presentation tonight. It was so beneficial. It was so important. Great audience. I wish there was a way to get something like this. I don't know how it's even possible to try to explain to our communities what the state is doing to us and the misinterpretation of what truly goes on in our schools that this represents. Is there any plans at all to try to, how can we even explain this to just a regular There's enough acronyms in it.
It is incredibly difficult
Yes.
to try and explain this, okay? I can't help but think that Terri said it very eloquently at the very beginning of her presentation. When you compare our scores to districts that are like us, yes, we think we're doing A work. I'll tell you, we think we're doing A work. We didn't get an A. But we feel very good right now about the 85. And we feel very good about the B work in comparison to how other districts turned out, like us. The fact that this was groundbreaking, first time this had ever been rolled out, something that's very complicated, something that we didn't really even get the final accountability manual till well after the test had been taken. So, you know, Sandy, I would tell you that I think for the most part, if we were to survey every parent, every community member out there, I think in the grand scheme of everything that we do for kids in this district, this is on the back burner. This is way down low on what they want for their students. So we'll be glad to try to explain it to anybody who asks.
Yeah.
But I just don't think you're going to get a lot of people who want to be explained this accountability system. Thank you, and I'm done.
Yeah, I just have a question maybe for Ms. Chidgey. So some of the things that we're doing to improve for next year, and again, the consultants that were mentioned, are those provided? Are those services provided to us by the state or by TEA? Those are being funded by the district.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought, and I figured I'd just ask the question anyway, because part of the frustration is that, you know, of course this is complicated. I think we all agree that it doesn't really have an accurate reflection, but, you know, and for us it's probably not that much of an issue to do this. I think we would all agree we want to do this because it's what we have to do. We want to see our kids getting better each year. But, you know, I'm sure there are some districts who are probably, in financially speaking, in worse shape than we are. And so this just adds to that burden. And it's like when we were going through our budget process, I'm like, you know, you want to only give me 13% of your funding, but 100% of your regulation. And so it just seems, you know, stupid. It really does. That's about it.
Okay. Ms. Williams, did you have?
So I'd just like to add, I guess, I'm assuming that all the principals of every school know what their school rated.
So yes, we prepared for them a PowerPoint, and Dorian and Alex, and we have somebody that's not here tonight, Brandy and Kayla, we prepared a PowerPoint for every school that had their, every slide, it had every domain, but then we drilled down to what was their reading score, approaches, meets, and masters? What was their science, approaches, meets, and masters? What was their growth? So we drilled down just as gave them every bit of information that they possibly could have about this so that they could present that to their campus, because we felt like it was so complicated that perhaps, not that our principals are not incredibly talented, but they're good with kids. This is so complex that we did prepare a PowerPoint for each one with their data on it, and the expectation was that they present that to their faculty.
What?
And also that I know there was a slide that compared the percentages of other school districts with similar, I think it was 46.6% disadvantage to ours. So do we have or have access to what those other school districts are and how they rate it?
We can find that on the TEA website.
It's open to the public.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, you know, this just all reminds me of health district restaurant rating. You know, it's like this A through F. I like to see how many points they use for restaurants. It's like, this is not a restaurant, okay? You know, I'm sure that it may sound simple, but when you start trying to address it to, you know, the parents and everyone, it's like, okay, everyone understands what A through F means typically, but I mean, I wouldn't even attempt. I'm going to ask you guys to come explain it to the cluster. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, if not.
Madam President, I'm sorry, may I just say one thing? Just because I've heard several of you make a comment, and I think this is worth mentioning. It is an extremely complex system. It really is. And kudos to Alex, Dorian, Terri, Brandy Merriman, Tiffany Arce. They've done a great job of doing it, of reviewing it. And I think what I would love for you to leave with tonight is not so much that it's complex, but these people have helped us decode that system and really simplify it to the campus so that they know how to work within these guidelines. And that is, I think, because when I spoke to you back in the spring, you sensed my frustration with it. I've come to peace with it now. I can sleep at night because I think we understand it now and really what truly matters within that system.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to approve the targeted improvement plans for Northern Hills Elementary and West Avenue Elementary as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you again, Terri and staff and everybody who's done a fantastic job. Item C, consent. 1, business services. A, budget amendment number 1. B, over 50,000 purchases. 2, operations. A, easement dedication for drainage, streets, utilities, and various service agreements, Jackson Middle School campus. B, professional service contracts, construction contracts, and related contract amendments supporting the 2015 bond design and construction requirements. 3, minutes from July and August 2018. 4, end of consent. Do I have a board member wishing to pull an item from consent? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved to approve consent items as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Item 10, reports. A, awarded bid report that's provided to you. 11, matters from the floor. The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies. 2, a personnel action. 3, a student disciplinary matter. 4, a complaint about a particular student. 5, or pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the Superintendent's Office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas, 78217. Ms. Hughey.
Tom Cummins.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Gottardy, staff, and audience. My name is Tom Cummins, and I'm representing the Northeast AFT, 6800 Park 10 Boulevard. A priority for Northeast AFT this year is to educate teachers, support personnel, parents, taxpayers, and the general public on the harm that charter schools do in public education in general, and students in particular. As we meet with our members, there's a repetition of teachers saying how poorly prepared the students come back to NEISD from charter schools are. So this is a serious problem when parents are believing their children are getting a good education when in fact they are not when compared to Northeast ISD. Furthermore, there are severe consequences monetarily for the taxpayer. At your desk, we've given each of you a true-false test on charter schools. Well, just a couple of months ago, I would have gotten 3 wrong, and several other I'd be guessing at. So just judging off of how I did, I think people are really not informed on the status of and what charter schools do. It's a conversation starter we use with our members and the public. We've already had one public meeting with over 50 people and another which had over 60. There were mixed teachers, support personnel, community leaders. We're starting to focus on homeowner groups. Overwhelmingly, the comment we hear most often is, quote, "I wasn't aware of that," or, quote, "Really?" We know there's a huge need for exposing the false tales of charter schools that is out there. As individual board members, we invite you to work with us. You have begun to see the damage charter schools can do both to NEISD and to students. So you know how important it is to tell NEISD's story as well as to protect public education. Regarding charter schools, Northeast AFT would like to work with the district in general in addressing the harm that they're doing to the district, as well as the harm that they cause on many students who now attend these charter schools. It's very important work, and we feel we can provide a vital role in addressing damage that is being done and reverse the flow of students. Now, if I have another second, I didn't know accountability would be here, but we're starting to do research on how well they're doing, and just some of the scores that were sent to me today. Brooks Academy got a D, Compass Rose, D, Jubilee Leadership, D, New Frontiers, D, Purvita Academy, F,
Okay.
Positive Solutions, D, and 2 others, improvement required. I won't go-
Thank you.
It continues.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, thank you. Item 12, discussion and possible action regarding board members' requests for items to be placed on a future agenda and our request for reports from the administration. Do I have a board member requesting anything? Item 13, adjournment, and the time is 8:26. Thank you all for being here.